This is Tokyo, a city most people imagine as a classic example of a hyper-dense, futuristic megacity filled with neon skyscrapers, bullet trains, and crowds moving in every direction. And while that's not entirely wrong, Tokyo, despite what most would guess, is actually one of the lowest-rise major cities in the world. Most buildings across the entire metro are only 2 to 5 stories tall. That might sound impossible, but it tells us something important about how this region was built up and how it really works. Unlike cities like New York, Hong Kong, or Shanghai, where tall buildings cluster around the center, Tokyo maintains a surprisingly flat skyline, even though it is, by population, the largest urban area on Earth, home to over 37 million people. So how does a city this huge look so small? And how did Tokyo become one of the most confusing cities not just in Japan, but in the world? But to understand how this happened, you need to go back to a time when Tokyo was still known as Edo, a massive, sprawling wooden city built long before modern skylines existed. By the late 1800s, Edo was already one of the largest cities in the world. Its streets were dense, chaotic, and organic, but two catastrophic events would erase most of that world and force Tokyo to reshape itself from almost nothing. The first was the 1923 Great Kanto earthquake. In a matter of minutes, the foundation of the city crumbled. Countless wooden buildings collapsed, fires erupted everywhere, and entire neighborhoods were reduced to ash. More than half the city was destroyed. Families fled, districts vanished, and Tokyo was forced into a massive rebuilding effort. But before that rebuilding could fully settle, the second disaster hit the wartime bombings of the 1940s. Block after block, Tokyo burned again. What the earthquake hadn't taken, the firestorms now erased. By the end of the war, the city had been almost completely flattened twice in barely a generation. When a city suffers that level of destruction, it has to decide how to reconstruct itself. And Tokyo, unlike New York, unlike Hong Kong, unlike Shanghai, didn't rebuild upward. It rebuilt outward. Land on the edges was cheap, zoning was flexible, and culturally, people preferred small wooden houses to towering concrete apartments. The priority wasn't creating a skyline, it was creating homes quickly, affordably, and in huge numbers. So Tokyo didn't grow like a traditional megacity. It stretched, fanned out, and expanded across the plain. The result was a nearly endless carpet of small buildings, each one modest on its own, but collectively creating the most populated urban region on Earth. This is where Tokyo becomes truly confusing, because what most people think of as Tokyo isn't actually one city at all. Inside the official Tokyo metropolis, there are 23 special wards, each with its own mayor, city hall, council, services, school system, and priorities. They function almost like independent cities. But outside that, the continuous urban region includes dozens of separate cities: Kawasaki, Yokohama, Chiba, Saitama, Mitaka, Fuchu, Musashino, all blending seamlessly into one enormous mega region. You can take a train from central Tokyo to Yokohama and never once feel like you left the city. Yet, on paper, you actually pass through multiple municipalities, each governed separately, each with its own rules and identity. Shinjuku, for example, is allowed to build high, dense commercial blocks full of offices and towers. But Setagaya, the most populated ward, is almost entirely low-rise homes, quiet local streets, and tiny residential blocks. Shibuya does things one way. Taito does things another. Minato has international flavor. Nerima feels like old Tokyo. Meguro and Koto have completely different personalities. But because it's all stitched together with no visible borders, it feels like everything is part of one gigantic organism. This is why Tokyo's structure is so confusing. It's not built from one plan, it's built from dozens of overlapping plans, each one layered onto the next over decades. And yet, somehow, it all works. But the biggest mystery of Tokyo is how a city that looks so suburban manages to be one of the densest places on Earth. The secret is something you might hear urban planners call the missing middle, except in Tokyo, the middle isn't missing at all. It's everywhere you look. Instead of massive skyscrapers or endless single-family homes, Tokyo is filled with countless small, multi-unit buildings stacked tightly together. 3-story walk-ups, narrow apartment blocks, compact homes built on lots barely the size of a parking space, micro-residential units tucked between shops, alleys, and courtyards. Each building holds just a handful of people, but there are millions of them. Tokyo's density doesn't come from height. It comes from sheer quantity. Tiny buildings multiplied across an entire region to create a population that rivals entire countries. But Tokyo's complexity doesn't stop there. Its transportation network is another layer of confusion. Most major cities have one transit authority. Tokyo has more than a dozen. JR East, Tokyo Metro, Toei Subway, Keio, Odakyu, Tokyu, Seibu, Tobu, Keikyu, Keisei, Rinkai, the monorail, the Eureka Momi, each operating different lines, different stations, different timetables, different fares, and different histories. And yet, all these systems interconnect so seamlessly that you can walk into one station and accidentally emerge into a totally different company's network without ever noticing. To residents, it feels normal. To visitors, it feels like trying to understand an entire city made of overlapping networks like 12 Tokyos stacked on top of each other. And because that rail network is so efficient, Tokyo didn't need to grow tall. People can live far away from the city center and still commute quickly, reliably, and comfortably. So instead of building higher, the city spread outward even more. But what really confuses people is how Tokyo feels when you actually walk through it. Despite its size, Tokyo is unusually calm, unusually quiet, unusually peaceful. Walk through Meguro. At sunrise, you hear birds, not traffic. Walk through Setagaya in the afternoon. You see bicycles, small shops, kids walking home from school. Narrow residential lanes feel like small towns, not parts of the world's largest city. Yet, turn a corner and suddenly the atmosphere flips. Neon, crowds, skyscrapers, department stores, arcades, trains rushing overhead, a sudden jolt of megacity energy. Tokyo hides its chaos until the exact moment you step into it. Part of this comes from how Tokyo's streets were formed. Most of them have no names and addresses follow a block numbering system that doesn't match a grid. Roads twist, shrink, split, dead end, or curve without reason. Neighborhoods weren't designed, they grew. Old routes became new routes. Buildings appeared wherever they could fit. And even locals occasionally get lost in the winding, unplanned layout. Yet, despite being confusing, Tokyo is astonishingly functional. It's one of the safest major cities in the world. It's clean, almost shockingly so for its size. Its trains run on time. Its neighborhoods feel alive but not overwhelming. Its infrastructure, despite the chaos, runs with the precision of a well-tuned machine. Tokyo shouldn't work. A city built from hundreds of tiny pieces, governed by dozens of municipalities, shaped by disasters, layered with rail systems, divided by different priorities by all logic. Something this fragmented should be falling apart. But instead, Tokyo is one of the best functioning megacities humanity has ever created. A place where small buildings hold huge populations, where different cities blend into one, where the future coexists with the past, where streets have no names but everything finds its place, where chaos and calm live side by side, where the world's largest city feels at times like a peaceful neighborhood. Tokyo might look simple from above, but the closer you get, the more its complexity reveals itself. And that complexity, the layers, the contradictions, the unexpected choices is exactly why Tokyo is, without question, Japan's most confusing city.